Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Mark. And it's still dark when we got up this morning because we were both up, well before 6 o'clock. I know that because we had a meeting to go to this morning. But daylight saving tomorrow, is it?
I think it ends it's Sunday night. It'll be
Sunday night. So.
And what were we at? We were at our monthly breakfast where a group of us have been meeting for 14 odd years.
14 years we've been together.
A number of leading Geelong businesses that get together, talk about directorship issues, leadership issues, the economy, and work together.
That's right. Once a month, breakfast for 2 hours, and we have a set format. And we take it in turns to host the meeting. And generally the host has to present a topic, or the host might bring in a guest speaker that is an expert in some issue that's come up in one of our meetings that we want to hear from an expert, or so-called expert, to help us clarify a few issues. And this morning, of course, Mark, what was the topic?
Well, the topic had to be as we called it, the train crash TV of watching Trump talk about tariffs. And we say train crash TV because you couldn't turn away from the train crash happening in front of us. But that said, a lot of our discussion this morning was what does it mean for Australia, Victoria, and even more specifically, Geelong? That's
right. And everyone sort of has a point of view. And it was a good, open and robust discussion. And one of the views, and I'll put my view first, is that I'm called the grandfather of the group, and I've lived through a few of these issues, and I probably go back. The first big issue that I had to confront in my own business was the stock exchange crash in 1987. And of course, we've had ups and downs ever since. And then, we had the recession we had to have and all the rest of it. But in more recent times, the biggest tipping point in our business history was COVID. And COVID forced a lot of people to rethink their business and rethink their distribution chains and rethink their product offering and all the rest of it. Now, I have a theory that what we're seeing at the moment, there will be the 48-hour panic and the reaction from the stock exchange, etc. But there will be a settling point somewhere along the line. And we will come out of this probably looking differently for those of us in business about our supply chains and we can't really anticipate what the effect is, but there will be an effect.
And I think a lot of the discussion this morning was around COVID forced us to look at what sort of manufacturing what sort of things should we be doing within Australia ourselves, because you can't rely on the supply chain to get things into you and COVID proved that. So a lot of that has probably driven some of the thinking with Trump and his announcements to say, well, what should we be doing ourselves to combat it internally, but also what are the other markets? And it was interesting to see that Japan, South Korea and China all get together and say that they're looking at trade between them. Well, we always see ourselves as part of Asia. Maybe we need to do more with this part of Asia and be looking at how that trade eventuates stronger and closer to home.
Yeah, a couple of issues, and I might put up the concept this morning. Let's do what Donald Trump did and build a wall. And we'll build a wall down the middle of the Pacific, right? And then we'll only look north and west, and that'll be our new trading block. But it's and people say, you've got to bring manufacturing back to Australia, but we won't be bringing car manufacturing, anything like that, back to Australia. That'll never happen. And we all see what's happening with the electric cars coming out of the Chinese market, and the car industry is going through its own change. So the other issue that I think that we have to stop, think, reflect on where we're going, but we have to look forward. There's no point talking about what's happened and what's happened in the past and talk about the great old days of manufacturing. But my belief is we must be forward-thinking in everything we do from now on.
And that forward-thinking discussion then led us to say, why do we federally only have a 3-year term and not a 4-year term? And why don't governments do long-term thinking instead of short-term thinking? Because everything is about, and I think one of our groups said, we get the little lolly handed to us and we suck on it and we think that's great. And then once that's gone away, we're still in the same situation we were in. So why can't we have governments that look longer term for the good of the country and have the right length of time to be able to enact things?
I think she was talking about the 75 cents a day lolly, wasn't she?
She was.
Yes, that's right.
So, and the other side of that is where we obviously have a state election creeping towards us, which is probably a year and a bit away, but we need some solid change on how we do things. We need to be thinking about what do we need to do to keep small business operating, manufacturing increased or encouraged. And then there's that whole new industry of AI that's bubbling away that we need to embrace as a country or as a state or as a town and make it happen.
Well, that was another topic of discussion this morning was AI. And for many, it's early days. But if you're running a business and you put your head in your sand about AI, I think you're being foolish. And, I deal in the area of family business. And I can tell you a lot of family businesses do have their head in the sand. And recently both you and I did an interesting thing separately without knowing each of us was doing it, is I bought 10 copies of Amir Katoub, who's written a book here in Geelong about AI and is considered an AI expert. And I gave 10 copies of that book to the staff at a small engineering company in Geelong and asked them all to read it. Because when I surveyed them and spoke to them about AI, only one person in that group had any idea of how to use it correctly to keep ahead of what's going on.
And not being salespeople for Amir's book, but Amir's written this book called The CEO Who Mocked AI. And it's a good story. It's a cross between a Mills and Boon and a factual
it's a storytelling book.
It's a storytelling book.
Yeah.
Love or hate the Mills and Boon aspect for it. The detail in there and the assistance, the links to templates is absolutely fantastic. It is a really good little book to help a small, medium, large business understand that AI is a friend and a tool. You just have to manage it. You just have to have the right policies around it, and you have to be thinking about where does your data go and how do you use that data for good. And there are lots and lots of industries that are delving into it and looking at the AI bit and thinking all the paperwork things that get done, the boring administration stuff, how do we use AI to get that out of the way so we can focus on the real nature of our business?
And I think I'm like many who are using ChatGPT because I'm rewriting a couple of small books at the moment, and I'm using ChatGPT and putting in the question about each chapter heading, and I'm getting additional information that I hadn't originally thought of. But we saw this again yesterday, Mark. You and I are in the first meeting of the judges of the Geelong Business Awards, and AI came up there on how can you implement an AI program into better managing a large business award program such as the one that you and I are judges on. And one of the judges mentioned a issue he has, or not an issue, how he's getting benefit out of Copilot. And now I've had that Copilot symbol sitting on my screen for ages, and I've never used it. But this gentleman goes to meetings and just takes bullet points. Then he comes back, puts it into Copilot, and he gets a full transcript back. And it's there. That's a simplistic explanation.
And it's interesting too, Bill, because one of the discussions we had at in judging the businesses is one of the questions that has been slotted in under the innovation category is your business using AI? Because if they're not, there'd be a prompt to say why not. But we want to get an understanding of how that business is thinking about their future. And then that led to the question, but what if people are using AI to write the application for the business award? And our consensus was, if they are, fantastic and good, because they still have to put the information in to get the right entry out. And it's no different to in the past going and using a professional entry writer to put together your entry.
in the
It's just a change in what's the tools that are
In the
available.
past, some of them would have used consultants to help them write their proposal.
Correct.
And there's nothing wrong with that. The only issue we might have to be aware of, because on the first reading day, between us, so the 12 judges or however many we've got, we actually read probably 60 to 80 entries.
Yep.
And you'll soon pick up some that look similar. And maybe that's a hint on what's going on. But it is... but when we talk about getting back to the tariffs and all the rest of it, the issue is that sitting here in Australia and sitting here in regional Victoria, we have to rethink what we look at, because this won't be the only hiccup we have. And Bernard Salt, the famous demographer, he has produced a set of stats that show that the timeline between downturns in the economy in Australia used to be about 25 years, and now it's down to probably between 6 and 10 years. So we've got to be... And just look how long ago COVID was. That was this day, Mark. What? 2020?
Year 2000, yeah.
2020. 2020.
5 years ago.
So here we are, only 5 years, and already we've got another forced downturn by world events that are happening to us.
And that's 2 years of our lives that we sort of have blotted out. Whenever anybody talks about their journey, those 2 years sort of have disappeared. But it is behind us. Yes, as one of our groups said, that was the third time I think he's had COVID over the last week.
Yeah.
But we've got over it. We've moved on. Yes, there's still ripples of ramifications of what we've had to go through, but it has forced us to relook at how we operate. And what's currently happening around the world is just forcing us to rethink again on what we need to do. That famous word pivot will probably come in again as we work out where we take our businesses and how do we change what we're doing and where do we source our product and who do we sell to.
Another thing we spoke about this morning, well, we speak about many things at our meetings and solve all the world's problems, or so we think, was the issue about robots as well. Because when we're talking about, how Trump is talking about, we're going to bring manufacturing back into America, and often we hear our politicians saying we're bringing manufacturing back. But for instance, if you use the hypothetical and you bring back a car manufacturing plant, well, it's not going to be manned by people. It's going to be manned by robots. And this has been proven the way that Chinese factories, and I remember going to Japan a few years ago on a trade mission, and I went to a Toyota factory, and all I could see were robots. Like there's rows of cars being built and sparks flying everywhere and not one human to be seen.
So the thinking that manufacturing will lead to hundreds of people lined up at a conveyor belt isn't happening.
No, that won't happen. There'll be niche manufacturing.
Yep.
That's what will be. And we saw this last week in the Geelong Manufacturing Council about the companies that won the awards, and they're into niche specialised manufacturing. That's what they are.
And talking about that, as we talk about good things happening, the winner of the manufacturing award was?
Well, there are various winners, of course, but Godfrey Hirst Carpets.
Oh, wow.
Who've been in business for over 100 years, were the overall manufacturer of the year. Who would have thought that a carpet manufacturer is still doing that when all the other traditional big manufacturing places have gone? And there are a couple of and Ostend was another winner of, I think, Innovation for Memory. But it was interesting because that dinner was held at the empty International Lounge at the Avalon Airport. And every time a winner got up or somebody got up to talk about a subject, one of the Australian Air Force jets would take off and you couldn't hear a word they said.
So it was being held while the air show was on.
At the end of the air show, that's right.
And that's the other great event that's happening in Geelong, or has just finished in Geelong, has been the air show. Unfortunately, an incident on the Friday night caused a little bit of grief, but that air show attracts a lot of business into Geelong. Lots of people come in here to stay and have a look at Geelong. So it's not only just a trade show, but it's also a good tourist business.
Well, I was talking to the franchisee at the Quest Central in Geelong, which is a brand new Quest, great building and great people operating it. Obviously, for the air show, he was booked out, and this is because the first 3 days of the air show are business days, and you've got people from all over the world coming here, and the public don't realise what actually is going on behind the scenes. And that's not only good for this region, but it's good for Australia in general.
And we forget that fills up the hotels, helps stimulate the cafes and restaurants. It's good. It's a really good thing that goes on in Geelong. It really is good.
And Mark, finally, one of the issues we spoke about this morning was the cost of labour and the issues around a skilled labour force. And I'm doing a project at the moment in what you could call the engineering metals field. 25 employees, but we've got other family businesses in Geelong and engineering employing up to 100 people and all the rest of it. But we're all experiencing the same problem, is that if you want to get a welder or a boilermaker at the moment, it's damn near impossible. And we know the reason for that, because they've all gone off to work on the big projects in Melbourne and bringing in the big bucks, and it's sucking the life out of manufacturing in regional towns like ours. And I had an incident this week, actually, somebody threatened me, an employee threatened that they'll leave unless they got another $25 an hour, and they go to the big build and all the rest of it. And in the end, he chose one of the options I gave him was, no, I'm sorry, we can't give you a pay rise, but you are free to go and take a job somewhere else if you wish. And where he went, but you know what? When the big build finishes, he'll come back to Geelong trying to find work at a lot less rate.
And the interesting part, exactly that, Bill, is a lot of folk have gone up to work at the big build. A number have come back because, yes, they've made extra money, but their transport costs getting there and back, the extra time that it takes to get up there and back, at the end, when they do the sums, it's probably better off staying closer to home. And as you just rightly pointed out, a lot of these projects, especially the tunnel, etc., will finish off later this year. Those folk, when they come back looking for work locally, are not going to be getting the 150 an hour they might be getting. They'll be getting closer to the 50 that they were getting, and that's going to have a real impact across the board. So it'll be interesting to see what transpires.
That's right, and this goes back to our discussion about tariffs this morning, is that all these things cause you to stop, reflect, and rethink your business. And in engineering in particular, I think that maybe you should go and invest in a company that makes robots. Right? That's probably what to do.
So I think, Bill, at the end of our brekkie this morning, I think the feeling was focus on your business, focus on your customer, look at ways of doing things better, and things will go through a cycle. That we will come out the other side. It's not the end of the world.
That's right. And stop talking about the past and be future-focused in your business.
Be future-focused and let's see where we go.
That's right. So anyway, look forward to next month's breakfast, Mark. We'll see what our hot topic is then.
Okay, and have a good day.
Thank you.